Catching big carp in the margins is a super exciting way of catching them, but there's one problem with them, especially on shallow margins like we're confronted with today here at Silent Lakes. That is getting loads of fish in your peg, swirling everywhere, but you cannot get one on the hook. And that seems to be quite a popular theme all around the country now. These fish, they're getting older, they've been fished for loads. When they see loads of bait getting pumped in the edge, they know something's up. They'll come in, but they are so hard to get on the hook. All they want to do is go around the back of your rig, through your rig, or not even come near your rig. But there's one method that can stand out and catch them, even when they're swirling all around your rig and you can't get one, and that is the method feeder. But it's not the same as fishing a method feeder conventionally. There's a few different things, especially the way you set it up more than anything. But it's not just a case of lobbing it in and hoping for the best. The way you set it up is really important, how you position your rod and where you fish. So let me show you the ins and outs of method feeder fishing in the margins. So we're only going to be fishing like really close to ourselves, like you would in a normal match, sort of 5 metres down the bank. So first of all, the rod is a 9-foot N-gauge Pro. This is one of the new ones out. To be honest, this is going to be my first time using it, so I'm really looking forward to using this. Again, matched up nicely. I've got a 3000 reel on there. On the reel, 10-pound line. That's 10-pound Pulse Pro on there, nice and durable. I'm not worried about fishing light lines. Now the next thing that I find quite important when doing this sort of fishing, what I don't want is line cutting straight through the water to my feeder. So I want to try and fish on as slack as line as possible. So what I've got on there, I've got 18 feet, so double the length of my rod, of 030 fluorocarbon on there, because I'm going to be fishing a slack line. Got a nice thick leader on there, so I'll plop the feeder in, just leave everything sort of just settle on the bottom, no tension in the tip. And this is where the next really important thing comes in, because you wouldn't be able to fish a running feeder like I normally like to, whether I'm fishing like open water or up against islands. What I'm going to have to do now is fish an elasticated feeder, so that's going to have to be my boat rig. So when they pick up the hook bait, they lift up and they're straight on the weight of the feeder. That's elasticated, that's got some black elastic in it, in a long stem. So that's the reason I can fish a nice slack line and not worried about them getting away with it. And then just for the hook length, my standard favourite sort of setup for that, I've got some 019 N-gauge there, 4 inches, to a 14 Kaizen eyed tied knotless knot. I really like that for my method feeder fishing. I don't know whether this is the way the hook turns in, but you get such a good hook hold. And you know your knots aren't going to slip over the spade when you're using like really thick line. So the setup is, it's not your normal setup to what you would use for open water fishing or island fishing. You've got the leader on, elasticated feeder, short little rod. Now the next thing that's really important is rod positioning. What I don't want to do is have the rod out in the lake with the line cutting back in. What I want to try and do is keep everything tucked to the bank. So that means the rod rest is going to be right around the side. When I underarm it in, I want to try and keep my line all along the edge of the bank here, so the fish aren't bumping into my line and constantly spooking out of my peg. So let me show you the rod positioning next. So as you can see, rod positioning is a little bit different to your norm. Normally, obviously, when you're fishing out into the lake, you've got the rod out in front of you, pointing at the feeder. Well, for this, what I don't want to do is have my rod out in front of me and a line coming back in on an angle, right through the middle where the fish are going to come in. What I want to try and do is sneak the line closer to the bank. So as you can see, the butt rest is on the back leg, the rod rest is on the middle leg. I'm swung right round and you can see there the rod is just running down, almost touching the bank the tip is. No tension in the tip at all. And then the line is just sort of snaking its way along those sides of the reeds and back to where the feeder is. So any fish that's coming from out into the lake or from the furthest point back up aren't going to get touched by any line. You might get an odd one that comes this way, but most of your fish will come from out in the lake or from where the space is. So I'm really happy with that setup. That's about perfect. As you can imagine, the bites are going to be electric, so just with your clutch, just have it slipping. If you're looking away, especially with an elasticated feeder, the bites are mental. So if you're like me and you're sort of looking around, seeing what's happening, you look back and sometimes the rod is absolutely screeching off. So just have your clutch just slipping. We'll see when we're fishing, you'll see what I'm talking about. But for the setup, a little bit different to the norm, but I think really important to have it set up like this, especially for margin fishing. So when it comes to bait, it's either personal preference or venue dependent. Today at Silent Lakes, I know they love ground bait and maggot, so what I've just got some Method Mix and some Green Supreme, but they're mixed 2 parts Method Mix, 1 part Green Supreme. I do like that little bit of green tinge to it. And then I've just got literally a little palm full of maggots, just for the hook. Be fishing like 2, maybe 3 dead reds on the hook. But if you go to different venues, I know like Larford, they like micro pellets. Here they like ground bait, so it's just wherever you go, just keep an eye what they're being caught on down the edges and just replicate that. It's pretty simple. So when it comes to baiting up, you can do it a couple of different ways. You can either use your pole pot if you want to be super accurate, you can use a bait up feeder, or if you're fishing quite close to yourself, you can just literally throw it in if you want to. So it's up to you, however you want to feed it. Obviously, the further you're fishing, probably pay to fish like a pole cup, pot it in, and then just underarm. If you want to be super accurate, that's the way to do it, or a bait up feeder clipped up. So I've put a little bit of bait in down the edge. I haven't seen any fish yet, so what I'll do, I'm going to set up a little camera just down the edge so we can like really see what's going on, and then hopefully we can get on with the session and I can show you how deadly this method can be. Right, so we're ready to begin. I haven't really seen any signs of fish yet, but I'm just going to have a little underarm there because you do get an odd one sneaking into the reader. I'm just going to start with a double maggot on the hook. Ground bait, like in a previous video, mix slightly on the dry side just to stop it sticking in that feeder, and so that you can compress it nice and tight around that feeder. And I double skin it, so give them a bit of bait. This is a 24 gram small. Probably, oh, there we are, the one's just swirled there now. So that's a good sign. So I've got a 24 gram small, 2 dead reds on the hook. There we are. That's the finished product. I'll just give it an extra little squeeze. And now when it comes to underarming it, it's pretty simple, to be honest. You're almost like throwing it where you want it. So I'm just looking where I want. I've got a little bit of pampas there. So I'm just trapping the line with my finger on the spool. And I'm literally just going to swing it into position. So I'll just swing it out. There we go, that's absolutely perfect. There's a bit of a reed there. So what I'm going to let it go down. Everything's nice and slack there now at the minute. I'm going to put him on the rest. And what you'll find is the more and more you fish with this leader, the better it will sink. This is quite a new leader at the minute, so. And again, I'm just going to slightly take that drag off, and you can see there now we're fishing. Tip is completely slack, it's just straight, no bend in it. But the bites, because of that elasticated feeder, the bites will be absolutely electric. And by having the rod just down at this angle here, I've got the line, because there's some reeds sticking out just there. That line is right tight to those reeds now, and then over to the feeder. Nothing's out in the lake, so anything that's approaching from out there coming in isn't bumping into any tight lines, because all they're looking for is anything to spook off. You see, like when they just bump into your bulk on your pole rig, or they'll just touch your line, and then you'll have like a funny indication, and then you'll just see a big bow wave going out into the lake. So when they come into like the shallower margins, they can be like super spooky, especially like on high pressured venues. So what I've fed there to start with, just like you would normally when you go down the edge, I've put like 3 pots full of ground bait with an odd dead red in it. I've just potted them. There you are. See that there's a bite now, look. And there we go, instant. I don't think he even knows he's hooked, that one. He was just sort of sat over the feeder, didn't really know what was going on, but that's our first one of the day. Slightly smaller one, nice looking carp though, little pretty one. He is. Oh bye. Can't even get hold of him, they're like bars of muscle in here. There he is, look. Nice little common, nailed perfectly there in the bottom, middle of the bottom lip. That's always what you're looking for in a method or a bomb or anytime you're ledgering. So we pop him back. And what was nice with that then was there was no sort of like liners or feeder getting dragged out of position. It just sort of sat there. Everything was nice and slack. A fish has come over the feeder, picked it up, little vibrate bite, and we were away. Didn't rip it off. I think he's picked it up, sucked it in, and he's just sort of sat over the top of the feeder, shaking his head back and forth, thinking, I've had it here, I've been caught. So let's do that again. So that's an amazing start. I have just seen another one swirling the edge there. So again, I'll just take up a little bit of tension. You can go first time if you want, but because we're only fishing like 5 meters here, you can almost just swing it into position where you want it. Perfect again now. So let it drop and then just pull it all along the bank. One has just swirled there as our feed has gone in, so just make sure the line's down, and then I'll just slacken off. And what I'll do, I'll just keep slackening off now. If I see it like tighten up a little bit, there's a bit of toe, I'll just keep slackening it until that line will sort of just settle down nice. That's where a nice thick line will help you with that. You could use like, you know, like a little running, how do they call them, like a little running back lead if you wanted to, but what I don't want to do is, because I've got a leader on, if my reel line breaks, I don't want that little, you know, that little weight to get stuck on the loop to loop and then have a fish dragging an absolute pile of, there's a dog in the peg now, a pile of line around. Go on, shh, go on, off you go. It's in front of the cameras, yeah. So there's a bit of a liner then. Same as anything, like you know on this, when you get a bite like that, absolutely carnage, and that's why you don't want to clip on. Like that bite is the complete opposite to that first bite, where he's picked that up, and that's put a jump on him, that one. You can imagine fishing to the clip there, you'd have lost a lot, maybe even the rod. Nice fish, I think. So we're on, got that leader knot now, back onto the reel. So I'm playing this now on 030, so it's nice strong gear. Elasticated feeder, nice strong hook link. But you can see with this method, there is no like foul looking fish striking at the wrong bites. When it pulls round, you know you've got him in the mouth. They can be an absolute nightmare at times on these shallow, you know, these shallow margins. You can just see them tailing up and your float's going everywhere. Wax under, you think, here we go, we got one. Off out into the lake, come off, come back with the scale. So at least with this, what's that? I think that's an F1, is it? Come on, boy. What is that? There's a little carp, I think. Another nice little fish there. Hell of a bite. I love those bites when they go off like that, and that's why you just want that little slipping clutch. You know, don't have it super loose, but you do want it. You do want enough tension. I've seen people before. I'm not going to name names, but Mark Griffiths fished a match against him on Larford, and he was fishing a bomb short. Had his clutch with no tension, and the amount of times his rod's gone round, he's gone bzzz, pick up, nothing there, because there's not enough tension to set the hook. So you still want to make him like work to pull the drag off, but at the same time you don't want it to be ripping the rod off your wrist. So let's just keep doing what we're doing for a minute. And I would just carry on now, as long as I'm catching like this, I would just stay doing this. And then refeed as and when you need to with either your big cup, your bait up, or whether you're just going to throw it in. You know, the principles are the same as the pole, feeding wise. You know, you're using a method, so it's the same as kindring baiting. You can use whatever size you want. You can use a big one if you want to. If you want to get more bait in, you could use a big hybrid if you were fishing with micros. It's just fishery dependent. I quite like just using this small method. You get a good amount of bait around here when you double skin it. So, there she is. And what's even nicer with this method is you need literally no kit. A couple of method feeders, a couple of hook links and one rod. Oh, it's perfect again, nice. So again, just make sure you do everything properly every time you do it. Just let that line go down, pull your line in. Take your time to position your rod bang on. And I'm sure by having this rod in the edge rather than out in front of you, it makes such a difference. It's quite easy to be fishing out in front of you, you know, and then think, right, I want to fish a method down the edge now, and then just keep your rod rest out there and you have all that line cutting through your peg. That is definitely what I don't want. This old dog's going to sleep by here behind me now. I've got nothing to feed him with. Whoop! That one's on, as I was looking away. And like I said earlier on, I'm a nightmare for looking away. And if that clutch wasn't set tidy, we'd have lost everything there. So that played perfectly into what we said earlier doors before the session. So let's just have a little carp, look. Come here, bye. And a little nest of commons here at the minute. Great fun though. Like, this little rod is absolutely perfect for this. I think 9 foot is just right. I think anything shorter, I think hinders you more than helps you. I think 9 foot is just about right for this. You can see there, that X-Safe system's working there because the feed had slid up. So if that main line had broke, that fish could just take that piece of elastic. It's not like a conventional fixed feeder. So let's just pull it back into position, put our little end cap on, and we just keep going as we are. One thing to definitely keep an eye for, and using maggots normally gives the game away, is keep an eye on the sharpness of your hooks, especially when you're just straight hooking baits like this, because you're relying on the hook being super sharp. You're not striking into anything. They're hooking themselves, so you need that hook super sharp to make sure it beds in. So as soon as you feel it sort of, you know, pinching on the maggots a little bit, like it's a job to break through the skin, just bite it off. Pop a new one on. Always have plenty of hooks tied up. You know, I've got a pin there, I've got 12 hooks tied. That's probably what I'd want for a 5-hour session. I'd want 12 or 15 hooks if I'm going to have a mega day on this feeder. You know, you will go through them. There you go. Let's try and get it back in the honey hole again. That bite was, look at this. And you're never going to catch as quick as that on the pole. You know, the time you fill your little pot up, ship in, put it in, pull your rig into position. We are an absolute nest of little squeakers here. There's a little squeaker in. But what's nice with this feeder is we are constantly feeding the peg every time we catch one. It's leaving bait behind. So there's always a bit of attraction in there. So let's just keep going. Bites are unreal on me, especially on this elasticated feeder. Just take up a slack again. We're in. Such good fun this is. I just love the bites. The bites are just amazing. And you know, you can see there by the bites, it don't matter about having all that slack line. They just feel that feeder and all they want to do is get out to the peg. Whereas if you fish an inline, there's a lot more play for him to be able to get away with it. There's too much slack there for him. And you'd never be able to fish it on a slack line like this. You'd have to have tension there, which means your line is cutting through it, straight to the feeder. It's very similar to the last video we done, with our little strung out rig for fishing the edge and laying some line on the bottom, just keeping all your line out of the way. Same sort of principle with this really. It's just about a little bit more stealthy, keeping your line on the bottom, nothing for the fish to bump into. definitely finish on this fish now. We've had an absolutely unbelievable session here, fair play. I knew it was going to be good, but nowhere near what this has been. So let's try and get this one in. I hope this has given you a little bit of food for thought. It's definitely something I'm going to be taking into this week's big match down at Willenhurst Lakes. Don't forget, if you've enjoyed this little video and you want to see more of this kind of stuff, give the page a little subscribe. That'll be massively appreciated. Keep us doing more stuff like this. The more we grow, the more we can do. So I'm going to sign off on this one. Well, from the video, but I'm definitely going to carry on fishing. So let me just show you him. Even though he's not having none of it. Nice little mirror to finish on, look. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I have making it. I'll catch up with you on another live macro tutorial very, very soon.